Welcome into Second Down right here on ESPN Radio. Christian Gokel alongside Cody Queen and Cam Ursery. Glad to have you hanging out on this Friday afternoon. A lot to get to today. The Atlanta Braves sweep the Washington Nationals and now have a crucial home series coming up with the Philadelphia Phillies, which they sit, Cody, 1.5 games behind. So potentially a weekend in which the Braves could be sitting atop the NL East when we come back in here on Monday. But again, a huge game, great performance by Drew Smyly yesterday. We'll dive into that. Jimbo Fisher is feeling himself a little bit, throwing the old smack talk gauntlet down, which is always dangerous, but exceedingly so when you start throwing the smack talk at a certain coach. So we'll dive into that in a little bit as well. The Hawks are running their division right now. Let Cam give us the latest from the NBA. It looks like the Lakers are headed to a play-in series in the NBA playoffs. So we'll let Cam break all of that down. But we hope everybody's having a better morning, afternoon than the gentleman, Cody, on I-95 who was apparently naked in his car in a ditch with what he claimed to have as a bomb. Luckily, we can say now that the situation has been resolved. No law enforcement officers were hurt in the situation, Cody. But yeah, that shut down traffic a little bit south of Jekyll Island on 95 and on 17 for a little while there. I know our good friend Scott Rifen was down there covering it live on the scene, providing updates for everybody. But that's a tough way to start the weekend there, Cody. Naked in your car in a ditch with about the entire Glenn County Police Department surrounding you.
They had an MRAP down there and everything. Snipers out. They had it down packed over near exit 29. You're giving me more information, more it comes out, and the more it comes out, the more strange it gets. Very, very weird situation. We haven't heard anything like this in a while. No one was hurt, right?
No one has been hurt.
No one's been hurt.
No one was hurt. But again, when you just see it, again, this from our friends over at WGIG 98.7, Scott Rifen put out the article, Naked Man Making Bomb Threats, Shuts Down 17, Buses Delayed. That's a hell of a headline there, Cody.
I don't see. We don't know the situation of what's going on,
Sure.
His mental status and all that stuff.
I'm assuming not great.
Not great. And you're delaying everything. How bad was the traffic?
Oh, they was standstill for a long time. That was kind of the funniest part because there was a lot of people. There's a lot of people posting on Facebook, and again, the situation is a situation, right? It was right near an exit on 95, and a guy had a bomb threat, so they were thinking about potential casualties from that, but also infrastructure problems. Where if he had a bomb that wasn't big enough, could it shut down an entire section of I-95? And so they cordoned everything off, got everybody back. But like some of the excuses that people were trying to hand to the cops from people on scene, like, guys, come on, I got a tea time. Like, I'm trying to get to the port. It's like, I don't want to take the long way around. It's like, well, you got to back your happy butt up, get on 99, and you have to go to the north side of the county. And you're going to have to come back down that way because there's a naked man with what he claims to have as a bomb. Sorry about your tea time, Jim, but I'm sure the guys will understand.
Imagine going to the clink and be like, what you in for? I'm like, dude, I robbed this. Hey, man, what you in for? Drug charges. What you in for? Naked bomb, dude. Like, you ain't messing with that guy. Well, ain't nobody messing with that guy.
Well, they haven't even confirmed the bomb yet. So as of right now, it's naked bomb threat.
Oh,
which sounds like a post-alternative band from like the late 90s.
Yeah, it does.
Naked bomb threat. But again,
or like a ska band or something like that.
Just very thankful that no one's hurt and that the police officers and the first responders were able to get everything under control there. But just an interesting way to start your weekend there. And but that being said, as we mentioned at the top, Braves get the series sweep over the Philadelphia Phillies, Cody. Or over the Washington Nationals, excuse me. They got the Philadelphia Phillies coming up here in a little bit. But Drew Smyly, probably his best performance thus far in a Braves uniform. He goes 6 innings pitched, gives up 0 earned runs, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts. But we were talking yesterday, man, and it kind of seemed like to me yesterday was going to be a throwaway game where it's just like, let's see what Drew Smyly can give us, but we're going to get Freddie Freeman some rest. We're going to move Austin Riley over to first base, and we're just going to try to get out of town with a series win. But Adrianza comes through clutch for you, making great plays on defense, but also with a crucial 2-out, 2-run single there that gives you what ends up being the game winner. So a big series for the Braves, Cody. You're now only a game and a half back of the Phillies now. So got the series coming up tonight, and the big part about that is Truist Park, 100% capacity going forward. So tonight's the first night of that. I got to imagine that one's going to be packed.
So what I want to say, because last series, what they gave up 26 runs.
Yeah.
This series, they only gave up 6 runs. Much better by the pitching, much better with the team camaraderie from what I was seeing. And especially against the Nationals and stuff like that. Dude, you want to smoke them every time. You want to smoke them every time. So here comes the Phillies. You want to do the same thing, but getting a sweep over one of the guys in the division, because the division is really close right now. So the more you sweep them, the more you do this, the more you'll pull away from these other cats. So now you're going to go with the Phillies. Phillies have won what? They've won 17 games right now. They're a pretty good team. They're a very well-balanced team. But
only
the
a
Braves,
game and a half back, though, man.
Oh, yeah, that's it. And the Braves, if they start getting warm and start getting hot, like I've said, this whole year, it all depends on what we're going to get out of the pitching. The hitting, sometimes it will be down, but most of the time the hitting's good. So pitching is what everybody needs to worry about. If they can pitch well, they will score runs.
I noticed what you're worried about. And Max Fried, a couple days ago, gave you his best outing of the year so far when he came off the IL. Drew Smiley gives you a good performance. You're still waiting on Mike Soroka, but you have Charlie Morton. So maybe if you can get 3 games in a row from 3 pitchers that have struggled for you, where you get solid outings out of them, I think that'll ease a lot of tension with a lot of Braves fans. If Charlie Morton can go out tonight and give you a solid performance.
Yeah, the Braves are up and down right now. I don't get it. They're kind of playing with everybody,
right? There's no just like win one, lose one, win one, lose one. It's we're gonna lose 4 in a row, and then we're gonna win 4 in a row.
Yeah, it's playing with everybody mindsets, which normally that's what Atlanta teams do. So yeah, they just coming off a 3-game win streak. But what I'm looking at is go 2-1 in this series. I don't think you'll be able to grab all 3. If you are, great. Go 2-1 in this stretch. Go 17-17. Be 500, probably half a game behind first place. But I mean, they actually put themselves back into a good spot when they was just in a bad spot. So I don't know what to take from the team right now.
It is weird, man, because you look at the NL East, and it's just the best way to describe it. It's the weirdest division in baseball right now, because the Phillies are in first place at 17-15, but they have a -12 run differential. And you look down in fourth place at 14-16, the Miami Marlins, they have a +20 run differential, which if you look at some of the other division leaders, St. Louis in the Central, they only have a +15 run differential. In the West, Oakland has a -13 run differential. It's been a really weird start to this year, and nobody has been able to separate themselves in the NL East thus far. This is a huge series. I agree with Cam. Win the series, right? Get out of there a half game back, and then get into the rest of the schedule. But Cam, how much do you think it's going to help that you now will have full capacity stadiums for this game? That's something we haven't seen in sports in a year and a half, basically.
Yep.
Like we haven't seen a full baseball. I guess we saw it in Texas, but at least in Georgia sports, we haven't seen a full stadium in a year and a half. I have to imagine, since Truist Park announced that they will be going to full capacity, this weekend's going to be sellout after sellout after sellout.
Well, it's not going to help me in my driving because of traffic. That's not going to help. But yeah, I agree. Full capacity. It's been a while. It feels like a lifetime right now. Feeding off that crowd, this could help the Braves jumpstart something good within this season and maybe get on the streak. But it's definitely going to help. We love playing in front of fans. Athletes love doing that. Fans love being in front of the athletes and watching them and cheering them on. So it's going to be awesome.
And Cam, switching over to the NBA real quick, the Hawks have gone on a little bit of a streak here. They are in first place by a game right now in the Southeast Division, 5th place in the Eastern Conference standings right now, 37-31 on the year. And the offense is starting to click, Cam. I know they've had some guys banged up with injuries, but the offense is starting to click, and they've been able to play some better defense as of late. Are they a team that you think is going to make a push for a first-round playoff victory? Or are they still immediately getting swept out of the playoffs no matter where they get in?
They won't get swept, but I don't think they're getting past the first round. If you look at the matchups, if the playoffs started today, they play the Knicks. I don't think they're beating the Knicks. Knicks is a tough team. They can mess around and play Boston or Miami at some point. I just don't think they're better than Boston, Miami. Yeah, I don't think nobody wants to play Miami. I don't think anybody wants to play Boston either. They're hot. But you have to give credit to the Hawks. They was down bad at the beginning of this year. 11 seed, made the coaching change. Look what coaching does now. They're the 5th seed. They made strides. They went from being a lottery team this year to now they're a solidified, bona fide playoff team. So you gotta like the growth in what they're doing.
And looking at the standings, Cam, teams 7 through 10 on each of the conferences will play in a play-in tournament at the end of the regular season to determine the bottom seeds there. And when you look at some of the standings, right, the Hawks just a game out of being in that tournament, right? The Los Angeles Lakers right now are tied with the Portland Trailblazers. So if a game goes either way, the Los Angeles Lakers will be playing in the play-in tournament. Are you a fan of this at all?
No, it's the worst thing ever created. You have 82 games this year. I think 70 something to make it to the AFC. We saw guys in the past like Kobe get hurt trying to push his way into the AFC because of that 82 game stretch. Now you're basically saying you can relax, be the 10th seed, make the playoffs. It's horrible. It's bad for sports. I don't like it, but you got to do what you got to do now. And Portland and the Lakers play tonight, so whoever wins
They
this,
do.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's pretty egregious, but when you look at it, baseball's been doing this for a while too, right? Where they've had the 1-game play-in series. I know the Braves fans will remember the infield fly rule, right? Where people lost their minds, Turner Field, throwing stuff on the field. I hate it. Like you said, Cam, after 162 games, after 80 games, the fact that you can't determine who these teams are and you want to make it 1 game after 80, after 162, not a fan of the play-in tournament. The Hawks right now currently sitting there in the 5 spot, so they don't have to worry about it. But as we mentioned, they're just a game away from being down in there. The Los Angeles Lakers playing tonight. If they lose that one, which Anthony Davis, I thought this was interesting, Cam, last night, going to the Lakers. They're down 20 in that game. And all of a sudden, Anthony Davis is hurt and can't play anymore. I mean, did it seem a little suspicious to you, or do you think AD is really dealing with something?
It was suspicious. AD wasn't hurt. They just said, you know what? We don't have the team. We're missing.
LeBron's out. We're down.
Bron, Schroeder, Taylor Horton Tucker, those 3 are out. We're losing. AD just go sit out. We're just focused on Friday and try to keep our way. I just don't know. The injury bug is killing. It's killing not just us, the whole league. It's kind of killing it right now. But
this is the first time we've really seen it for LeBron, because before it was always just cramps, but this is really the first time we've seen him start breaking down at the end of the season. I wonder how much of that was the quick turnaround from last year in the bubble into the regular season grind this year, but just all we know right now is LeBron has not been able to stay healthy so far this year. But if you ever needed a case for the MVP race for LeBron James, watch the Lakers when he's not there.
Yep.
They're bad. They're bad when LeBron isn't there. Even with Anthony Davis and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and all the guys they have out there, they're bad. It's the most precipitous drop-off that you see when any superstar is out, right? The Brooklyn Nets are honestly better when all 3 of them aren't playing, when one of them's out. But LeBron goes out for the Lakers, that team all of a sudden is a very average Western Conference team. So I've said for a long time, the NBA MVP award is basically just the best player not named LeBron James award. And we're seeing that more and more this year. We got more to come here on Second Down. We'll dive into some college football talk when we come back. If you miss any portion of the show, check it out on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts. We're streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook as well. We'll be right back after this. Second Down on ESPN Radio is presented to you by the Uniform Source. Glad you're hanging out with us today. We'll hear from Jaguars team reporter Ashlyn Sullivan coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Her reaction, obviously Trevor Lawrence is the big name, but she's got a really cool story about Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne coming up. So make sure you stick around for that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. We also have an interview we did a little bit earlier in the week with former Long County standout and first-round pick by the Washington football team, Jamin Davis. He hung out with the 3 and Out guys, so we'll play that one for you as well coming up on 3 and Out. But guys, going to dive into the name, image, and likeness law that Governor Brian Kemp signed into effect yesterday and the significance of that. We also have some releases from the local universities about how that affects them. But I did want to dive into this first. There's an old adage, and it's you don't poke the bear, right? You yourself, small human being, bear, 500 pounds of claw and teeth, right? You don't poke the bear because it's not paying attention to you. Why are you going to mess with it, right? Well, Jimbo Fisher apparently has never learned that lesson. An audio obtained from the Houston Chronicle, Jimbo Fisher was speaking at a Houston Touchdown Club meeting. And, you get in there amongst your people, you start feeling yourself a little bit. You're surrounded by a bunch of fellow Aggies, and, they start launching the questions at you, and you puff your chest out a little bit. One of the fans asked them, what's it going to take outside of Nick Saban retiring for someone to be able to overcome Alabama in the SEC West? Jimbo Fisher's response, we're going to beat his ass even when he's there. Let's just let that one sink in for a second.
You ever seen that clown meme where he's like putting on his makeup?
Yeah, the Joker.
And keep continually doing that. That's what it sounds like.
That's
did Nick Saban, he had a response.
Well, yeah, we'll dive into that in a second. In a second. Don't bury the lead. We'll dive into that in a second.
Okay.
Mhm.
But like Cam, the fact remains, no Nick Saban assistant has ever beaten him. Kirby Smart hasn't done it, right? Jimbo Fisher hasn't done it. Lane Kiffin hasn't done it. They've never been able to do it, Cody. They can't beat him.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Jeremy Pruitt couldn't do it when he was at Tennessee. It hasn't happened yet. So you still have that big zero right there. And Nick Saban's got a hell of a coaching tree.
Oh, yeah.
At a bunch of big name schools. Think about some of the schools I just said there. Georgia, Texas A&M, Tennessee, right? Ole Miss haven't been able to beat him, right? So you're saying we're going to beat his butt even when he's there. Number one, inside the Alabama locker room right now, they're painting that. Like they're painting that up there, like the team font up above there, like with Jimbo Fisher next to it in the quotation marks. Like that's in the Alabama weight room. So every time those dudes are having a front squat or lift or sit there and do the holds, like the dead man hangs, and they're just getting physically and mentally abused by the strength and conditioning staff, they can look up and see that. And so they're just going to internalize it so they can beat Texas A&M 50-0 this next year. But I mean, Cam, before we get to Nick Saban's response, what the hell are you thinking there? Like, I understand you're at a Touchdown Club meeting and not at the SEC Media Days press conference, but you have to understand that there's always going to be a microphone around you.
Why are they giving Alabama motivation? They did it last year when LSU beat them. It took LSU 11 years to beat them. And then they come back and they're talking junk. Alabama wins the championship. Okay, they just won. Leave them alone. Didn't you just lose to Bama last year by 30? Like, come on, leave them alone. You're giving them added motivation to come this year and just smack everybody. They don't have nothing to prove, but Jimbo's a little out of line. You haven't really done much here at Texas A&M yet since you've been there. Just leave it at that and stay humble.
And Cody, there's a lot of I love smack talk, right? I really love it. But you got to choose the time and place. And when someone asks you about Nick Saban and Alabama, you have to go, you know what? We're not scared of anybody. We're going to go out there. We're going to play them as hard as we play anybody. They're just another opponent on the schedule. We have to beat them to accomplish our goals. We respect everything they do in Tuscaloosa, but we feel very confident about our team. That's all you need to do.
Yep.
Say everything by saying nothing, or say nothing by saying everything. It's one and the same. It doesn't matter. What you're not going to do is give Nick Saban bulletin board material. And again, Cody, before we get to Nick Saban's response, Lane Kiffin, again, another Nick Saban assistant, now the head football coach at Ole Miss, got on Twitter and he chimed in. He said, "Here we go again. Man calling out the GOAT in the middle of another championship. Good luck." At Alabama football just went on the wall in the weight room in Titletown.
Lane,
Like
you're the
Lane
homie.
Kiffin that is the head football coach of another SEC school looking at another head football coach of another SEC school and saying, "The hell are you doing?"
You can't run your mouth whenever the last 8 games you have lost. Texas A&M
Yeah,
has
it's been since Johnny Manziel was your
2012, dude,
Yes.
and it was an upset, barely like 29-24 or something like that. It was very close. So can't run your mouth when you get beat down every year. It's you just can't. It's like the kid, say you're out in practice and you smoke him all the time, but he still talks smack knowingly that you're smoking him, dude.
Alabama doesn't have to talk smack. You know what their smack talk is? Championships.
Real,
Like,
yep.
Their trophy room.
Real G's move in silence like lasagna.
Yeah, like it's just their trophy room. Like that's what their smack talk is. And their smack talk, like Cam said, is beating you by double digits whenever they play you. But yeah, Nick Saban was asked about this. He was given a press conference and a reporter brought it up again, saying we're going to, again, the direct quote from Jimbo Fisher, we're going to beat his ass even when he's there. Nick Saban's response, in golf?
Yeah.
Like he's like, that's the only thing that like mentally computes that Jimbo Fisher might be able to beat me in, which I mean, still Jimbo or Nick Saban's heck of a golfer. I saw a video the other day of him and Ernie Els hanging out, but like it didn't even compute in Nick Saban's mind that he could be talking about a football field, because no one would be so foolish as to make that statement about playing a Nick Saban team on a football field, Cody. I mean, after what you just saw in the NFL draft, where like half the draft picks in the first round were Alabama players, I mean, no one could be that foolish.
Well, it's not only him, it's the guys that play for him. You know what I mean? They're like, you said what about who? About my boy? Because they love Saban there. And dude, this is going to be
But
bad.
the thing about what you're saying when you're saying we're going to beat his butt is you're talking about beating those guys' butts.
That's what I'm saying.
Those monsters and mutants that play football at the University of Alabama. Like, you're basically saying that to Evan Neal, who's all of 6'7", 340 pounds. Like, he's going to eat you alive. Bryce Young is now going to throw for 400 yards in your face. It doesn't matter. Nick Saban ain't calling off the dogs in this one now. Like, it's just I don't get it. I understand the friendly banter. Understand like he's your boy going back and forth. Like that's beyond friendly banter. That's when you go from joking around to locked in. If you're the other person, you're like, all right, well, we just circled Texas A&M on the schedule, and Alabama already has everybody circled.
Texas A&M is going to let you know, as long as Saban is in charge, you're never winning the West.
No,
also
if you're into gambling, Cam, just start hammering Alabama as soon as that line comes out for the Texas. It doesn't matter how early it is, injuries, whatever, like how big the line is. Just start hammering Alabama, because they're going to win and cover by a lot in that game. Nick Saban's going to make a statement, because Jimbo Fisher, to be fair, right now is his biggest threat in the SEC West. It's not Brian Harsin in Auburn. It's not Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. It's not Mike Leach at Mississippi State. I like what Sam Pittman's doing at Arkansas, but it ain't him. Right now, the biggest threat to Alabama in the SEC West is Texas A&M. And a lot of people think they can be better this year than they were last year, even losing Kellen Mond, because they do have Isaiah Spiller. They have a really good backfield, a good defense, and whoever ends up starting at quarterback for them, they have really good options there. So they are the number one threat. And I won't just say in 2021, I'll say period, because of the infrastructure at Texas A&M, the amount of money they have to spend, the facilities. And Jimbo Fisher is one of 3 head coaches now in the SEC that have national championships.
Yep.
Nick Saban, Ed Orgeron, and him. I don't think I'm missing anybody there, but he's one of 3.
Yep, you're right.
With national championships as a head coach, because he won the last BCS national championship
for FSU.
When he was at Florida State with Jameis Winston. So he's got the championships. He ain't got nearly as many as the guy he's talking bleep to. So I mean,
got a championship, right?
Yeah, I said this with Rich Styles. Right? You come at the king, you best not miss. Right. So if you're going to start talking bleep about Nick Saban, you better be able to back it up. So this game, they just got a whole lot more interesting. But if it's me, I am hammering Alabama in that game. We got more to come here on Second Down. The governor of the state of Georgia signed into law a new name, image, and likeness law. We'll dive into what that means for Georgia athletes coming up, and a clause in there that has a lot of people nationally shaking their head. We'll dive into it next right here on Second Down. Second Down on ESPN Radio is presented to you by The Uniform Source. 2 different locations in Savannah to take care of all your uniform needs. Christian Gokel alongside Cody Queen and Cam Ursher here on this Friday after a beautiful Friday afternoon. Cody, I think it's going to be some beach weather for the weekend.
A little windy, but beautiful. I love the wind.
That is the most
Love it.
that is the most first world problem I've ever heard in my life. It's like perfect 80 degrees and sunny outside. And you're like, I don't know, it's a little windy.
Have you been to like a second world or like a third world country? How would you know this?
It's a little.
The only man on the show who has been.
It's a little windy.
Because I like
It's a cool
first,
localism.
I like stuff.
It's a saying about when you have a problem that relevant to other problems isn't that big of a deal.
You know, I had to go like pick up my trash can and stuff like that because it had gusts and everything. It was a little nuts.
Are you
man.
okay?
A little nuts.
Okay,
I got trees around my house.
You had a 10-mile-an-hour breeze hit you?
Dude, I got trees around my house. I'm not trying to have them fall down, dude. Nope. Don't do all that.
All right, well, while Cody's complaining about the wind over
Homeowner
here,
problems, I know.
While Cody's complaining about these small puffs of wind
Not
around
small
South
puffs of
Georgia
wind.
right now.
It's ridiculous. It's so
We'll
fast.
dive into the name, image, and likeness laws that were passed in the state of Georgia yesterday. Before we dive into them, and Cody and I were talking about it, I was kind of explaining it to him in the break there. Georgia passed a law where it is now or will become legal on July 1st in the state of Georgia for student athletes to profit off of their name, image, or likeness. They can go to a car dealership, they can go to a restaurant, they can do sponsorships on social media, and they can make money for being them.
Yeah.
Right? Celebrities make money for being them, just appearing places, eating a sandwich, sitting in a car. They make money for being themselves, having a certain following on social media. Now they can make money for it legally in the state of Georgia. But what you have to remember, and this is going to be the big sticking point, I think, the debate for the next year or so until it changes, it's still an NCAA violation. Everything I just mentioned right there. If you're a student athlete in the state of Georgia, even if Georgia says it's legal, and you go out and you go to a barbecue restaurant and they pay you $500 to take your picture eating a barbecue sandwich and they use it on their social media, you would become ineligible in the NCAA. So though you would not be breaking a law in your own state, the governing body of the institution you play in says what you are doing is against their rules, and they're really passing the buck along to Congress and saying, we'll change it if Congress will come up with one universal law for the entire country. If you do this, you will be ineligible. You won't face any legal penalties, but you will not be able to play your sport anymore. And so we have to keep that in mind. And Cody, I was saying for some folks listening out there, if you need a comparison, it's very much like if you were in the military and live in the state of Colorado, right? In the state of Colorado right now, Cody, it is legal to buy and smoke marijuana.
Yep.
It is against the rules to do that if you were in the armed forces.
Yep.
Right. So though the state you are living in says it's okay to do this, the governing body of your employer says it's not okay.
I was stationed there whenever it did become legal.
Yeah,
You're right,
so it's
110%.
And so it's though the state you're living in, it's okay. The governing body says it's not, and so you have to abide. You're not going to get arrested by a cop in Colorado for smoking it, but you will get in huge trouble with
when the urinalysis comes,
with the military for doing it, right? So that's the comparison that I've heard a few times now. But just getting into the law itself, Governor Kemp signed it into law yesterday at the University of Georgia. It's again the NCAA passing the buck, waiting for Congress to pass their own. This is just the state of Georgia. And I'm just going to read the first section because I do think it's the most important because it just describes what the law is. A student athlete at a post-secondary educational institution may earn compensation for use of his or her name, image, or likeness. Such compensation must be commensurate with the market value of the authorized use of the student athlete's name, image, or likeness. Such compensation may not be provided in exchange, in whole, or in part for a current or prospective student athlete to attend, participate, or perform at a particular post-secondary education institution. A lot of big words in there. Let's just go through it a sentence at a time. First sentence basically saying student athletes in a college can now make money off of their name, image, or likeness. Now, such compensation must be commensurate with market value. What does that mean, Cam? If a car dealership typically pays an actor or someone making an appearance $500 to use them in a commercial, they can't all of a sudden be like, hey, you're the quarterback at University X. We're going to give you $10,000 to do it, right? Because we know who you are. We think you'd be a big deal to come in and do it. It has to be commensurate with the rate. Can it be a little bit more or a little bit less? Sure. but it can't be by the letter of the law this 200, 300, 400% more than what you're usually doing, because what they're trying to avoid then, Cody, is paying for student athletes. Like, hey, if you come to our school, we got this car dealership we'll set you up with 50 G's a month. They'll give it to you. They'll give it to you through there, and you just have to show up there and sign some autographs every now and then. Like, right? Like, that's what they're trying to avoid. Such compensation may not be provided in exchange, in whole or in part, for a current or prospective student athlete to attend, participate, or perform at a particular post-secondary educational institution. Saying there, the school cannot pay you for appearances, and you cannot be paid because you're going there or to go there, right? So basically what we just said, you can't sign a contract, sign a deal with someone that's like, if you come to this school, then we will do this, right? And so I knew there was going to be some framework around this, Cam, but I think it's a good deal, right? I've heard guys like Charles Barkley going on the Feinbaum show and complaining about this law, saying, oh, well, nobody's going to want to give contracts to those big, ugly offensive linemen, right? What this law does is it just gives you the chance. It doesn't guarantee anyone anything. It just takes the restrictions away and says, if you are a big, ugly offensive lineman, you now have a chance. If you're a streamer, if you are really big, like I've been thinking, Cody, with some of these former Georgia players that are huge into hunting and have huge social media followings.
Yeah.
You can't tell me Mossy Oak and companies like that wouldn't sponsor some of them, right? So, Cam, instead of making guidelines in which, like, here's how each of these different positions and groups are going to be paid, and here's how it's none of that. It's just, we are now giving you the opportunity as a student athlete, no matter what sport, no matter what position, no matter how far down the depth chart you are, to go out and make money off of your face.
Yeah, I'm glad they can start making money. That's just the big thing. It's baby steps. You can't just expect things to go from, oh, we're not making money now, you can make this X amount of money, this exorbitant amount of money just now. It's going to be baby steps. Obviously, like, for instance, 2 years ago, Zion Williamson was bringing in millions to Duke. Like, I think one game he produced over like 50 million for that one game or something. He's not going to touch all of that. But the point is, they're making baby steps for these athletes to get money now and try to get their name, image, and likeness. So you got to work around it. Everything's not going to be in our favor.
No, Zion Williamson would have made, like, Nike would have paid Zion Williamson a lot of money while he was at Duke to feature him in advertising on social media. Like, and I think we all have a very antiquated view of how this is going to happen. We're all thinking of, like, oh, he's going to come do a live remote from a car dealership, like, or they're going to shoot a TV commercial with them. They very well might, but where a majority of this money is going to come from is from social media.
Yes.
Like, that's absolutely where it's going to come from, because you may not know who the 4-star safety is that's, like, hasn't really started for your team yet, but his 14, 15,000 followers on social media do.
Yep.
Paige Bucher for UConn, Cam, she is the most followed student athlete, period. Period.
That's women's basketball.
Like, yeah, and that is women's basketball, and she has more followers than any football player, any basketball player on the men's side. She understands social media, and that is buying power for that with companies. Like I said, big companies. Nike would 1,000% be on top of paying somebody like that. So we have to get outside the views of they're going to be reading radio spots, right? A lot of this is going to come from social media, and they're going to be making a lot of money just based off how many followers they have. And so I think that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing I wanted to dive into, because this is a really big point of contention nationally, where the state of Georgia is catching a lot of heat. There is a clause inside of that, if you scroll down to the 69th line inside of the law, and it said team contracts may provide for a pooling arrangement whereby student athletes who receive compensation for the use of their name, image, or likeness pursuant to this article agree to contribute a portion of the compensation they receive pursuant to such a contract to a fund for the benefit of individuals previously enrolled as student athletes in the same post-secondary educational institution as the student athlete. And it goes on to framework that. But what does that mean? That says each school, it is up to their discretion to take an amount or a percentage from each different deal you sign, right? So if you were Trevor Lawrence while you were at Clemson and Pantene Pro V wanted to come in and sponsor your luxurious locks, and they were going to give you $10,000, right? And again, this is just projecting using Trevor Lawrence at Clemson. Obviously, South Carolina is a different state from Georgia, but just using Trevor Lawrence as an example. they paid him $10,000. If Clemson had a clause that said, we're going to take 50%, okay, well, Trevor Lawrence keeps $5,000 of that deal, and then Clemson would take $5,000 of that deal to be spread out in a pool that they keep in a financial institution and then give out dividends to each athlete at the school based on how long they've played there, based on based on whether or not they graduated. And if they didn't graduate, they would have to wait 12 months after leaving the school to get the money from that escrow, basically, right? So I think it's an interesting thing. So again, the University of Georgia, which has come out and said alongside Georgia Tech that they will not be doing this, because I think that's a terrible look for recruiting. Number one, I think it's bad overall. Like, you're pulling in millions upon millions of dollars off these student athletes, and now you want to take whatever money they get too. I think it kind of sucks. But Georgia and Georgia Tech have said that they will not be doing this. But again, Georgia could say, we want 30% of whatever you pull in. So if you get a $10,000 contract, we get $3,000 of it. And then once our equestrian senior for our equestrian team graduates, based off of if she was there for 4 years, she would get more, and she would pull some money, that pooled money. So it's an interesting idea. I think Cory Booker, the senator, actually was one of the first to introduce that idea, but his thought was pulling the money from the money the school brings in from TV contracts.
Look at that.
Not from the athletes themselves. But again, to clarify, Georgia and Georgia Tech have both announced that they do not plan to use the pooling clause. I think that's smart as hell, because if you use that and Alabama and Auburn don't, what do you think the number one thing is, Cam? They're saying when they go to a recruit's house, oh, you want to go to Georgia? Well, be prepared to make 30% less than when you come to Alabama, right?
Yeah, that's going to mess up recruiting. And then it's Alabama. They already got an upper hand, so that would mess up recruiting.
Yeah, so Georgia and Georgia Tech have said no. I do have the official statements from a couple of local schools. Georgia Southern, their exact release says, Governor Kemp has signed into law House Bill 617, which allows student athletes to earn compensation from their name, image, or likeness starting July 1st, 2021. As an athletic department, we have closely monitored the national landscape and have been in discussions about the future of name, image, and likeness to make sure we are prepared to fully support our student athletes. We will now begin implementing our plans to meet the requirements of the law and to provide each of our student athletes with all the information they need to take advantage of these new opportunities. They said a lot. They said nothing by saying a lot.
Yeah,
they said nothing by saying a lot. They said, we are fully prepared. We understand the law. We will help our student athletes out. Said nothing by saying a lot. Savannah State kind of takes the same direction. They say NCAA Division II has not issued a rules change regarding the matter of student athletes receiving compensation for name, image, or likeness addressed in Georgia House Bill 617. In order to remain in compliance and ensure future competition is not threatened, we must follow the NCAA rules in regards to the matter of NIL compensation. We are also seeking guidance from the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference office on how this new legislation affects Georgia schools. We are awaiting decisions from these governing bodies before setting our internal policy. Again, to what we referenced at the beginning, though this is a law in the state of Georgia, it is still an NCAA violation. So Savannah State not commenting until the rules are changed by the NCAA. We'll break it down more on 3 and Out with BJ, Ben, and Kevin. We got to step aside, take a quick break. We'll come back. Final segment of Second Down next. All right, trivia time for you guys real quick. Can anybody tell me what holiday is coming up on Sunday?
Mother's Day.
There we go. Cam knows. Cody, I know you know because you were worried about what you're buying Mom for your Mother's Day. So that being said, what I need to know from you guys before we get to the weekend and before we get to Mother's Day, I need to know a story from each one of y'all where you infuriated your mom beyond belief.
Cam, you go ahead first. Mine's pretty bad.
We got to be quick,
Well,
but I just need to know.
I've never really infuriated her.
That's a lie.
So I don't know.
Put
Not
your
that I
mom-
know of.
I'll go while you think of a time you interrupted her. This is very PG, but I still think it's funny. It's one of the maddest times she's ever been at me. We used to carpool, Cody, when I was in middle school, my class in the car, and we had a bug project where we were supposed to collect 50 bugs and put them up on a board, like in the alcohol with the pins in them, and take them into science class. And I told my mom it was 20 because I wasn't feeling like going out there and finding 50 different kinds of bugs. And so I had my project. She had her project. She goes, yeah, it was really hard to collect 50 bugs. And the look I got from like my mom looking into the rear view mirror into my soul was one of the funniest moments. Like now funny, horrifying then, but yeah, that still cracks me up to this day.
I was a problem child. I got arrested 3 times in a week one time. My mom was not happy.
And she's like, I ain't bailing you out no
Not
more.
happy. Yeah.
I ain't bailing you out no more. Go ahead, Cam.
Mom told me not to get a speeding ticket. Told her I'm not. Leave me alone. And that's, an hour later, I get a speeding ticket. Super speed.
There you go. That's
Yeah.
what I'm looking for. Cam Ursery, Speed Demon, Christian Gokel, not feeling like doing all the work, and Cody, just a juvenile
The criminal.
delinquent.
Yeah.
Just a delinquent. We got a big show coming up for you on 3 and Out today, though. BJ Bennett, Ben Troop, Kevin Thomas get you caught up with the Braves sweeping the Nationals and preview a big series coming up against the Philadelphia Phillies. We have full coverage of that game coming up for you a little bit later tonight. Also have an interview with first-round pick Jamin Davis that the guys did. You'll be able to hear coming up at the 3 o'clock hour. Jaguars team reporter Ashlyn Sullivan breaks down all the draft picks from the Jaguars and first-year head coach Urban Meyer. You will not want to miss that interview. All that coming up next year on ESPN Coastal. If you miss any portion of our show, check us out on ESPNCoastal.com or wherever you find your podcasts.